What is the truth? Is the truth what we choose to believe, or what's actually real and factual? This is one of the ideas explored by the famous literary work Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, in which a crazed man named Don Quixote sets out on numerous adventures, believing that he is a knight of the olden times. He's a very intelligent and yet foolish man in his 50s, who becomes obsessed with his books regarding knights and their fictional tales. Despite everyone telling him that he has never been a knight and that knights have never existed, he refuses to heed their words. As a result, he sees the world through a highly flawed and yet unique lens, seeing windmills as gargantuan giants and horse girls as pretty princesses. He suffers from his own delusion, but to him, it's just how life is. This idea of truth versus reality is not novel and has been explored through hundreds of films throughout history, but there is one film in particular that I would like to discuss today, and that is the film Not Homeless by Daniel Minyard. It can be classified as a horror film due to the strange and erratic behavior of the protagonist, Ed, as well as a comedy from its unusual lightheartedness at times. Despite its somewhat negative reviews, I believe that this film takes the idea of truth versus reality and expands it in ways that will forever shape our culture. So without further ado, I will now get into the video essay on Not Homeless. Now, Not Homeless is a very interesting film for several reasons. The first being the main character is extremely pathetic, which makes you sympathize with him, but not to the point where you wish you could give him some money because he'd probably just use it to wipe the sweat off of his face. But you begin to understand after the first few minutes of watching the film that this character is in a very particular situation. He seems to be in denial at the fact that he is homeless and seems to be trying to make the most of his situation, as you can tell from him using the park water fountain to freshen himself up. Similarly to Don Quixote, Ed embraces his own reality, where living in a box and surviving off of the park amenities qualifies him as a non-homeless person. However, unlike Don Quixote, deep down inside he knows that he's wrong. You can see from his face that he's uncomfortable with the decisions he has made, and yet accepts that this is his life now, despite knowing that he could easily change it for the better. And like Don Quixote, Ed rejects the advice and help that he is offered from others. In this case, Ed actually runs away from his brother, someone who he used to trust and love before descending into his lunacy. This scene is actually one of the first few turning points in the film, where Ed's true reality and false one collide. He hides from his brother, a living reminder that he's not actually homeless and instead chooses to be a dirty hobo living in the park. I don't have anything good to say about this part, but I will say that Ed does a really good job of looking disgusting. I think it might be like a natural talent for him. I don't know. Oh. Now, as Daniel gets inside his box, it's a very symbolic moment. His box, or should I say, his home, is his last line of defense not just from the harsh cold night, but also his own doubts. He knows that if he loses this box, he will truly be homeless, even though he practically is already. This guy has no respect for my personal space. We now see that Ed is at his lowest, and he is forced to sort of admit that he is homeless to some extent, as he is breaking into his former home. This is what I believe to be the climax of the film. It is at this point where Ed decides whether or not to accept the truth and stop being homeless, or continue to live on in his new life. Now, I think it's significant here that he puts down his phone. Generally, when you get home from, let's say, work, you usually take out the contents of your pocket, which often include a phone, wallet, and keys. Ed putting down his phone on the countertop signifies that this is truly his home, not that dirty box that probably smells like pee. I just wanted to say that this part is way too long. Like, there's like 10 minutes, which is like almost half of the video, of just Ed in the kitchen. Oh, look at him. He's a goof. What a goofball. I wonder if he's gonna let him have some. What? Hey, hey, no, come back! Don't you leave!
I go to parties, but I don't stay long. I spend the whole day staring at my phone. At night, I dream of such a long